In this video, we need to build Superman as a playable character in Dungeons & Dragons. I did very recently build Homelander, but that's just a straight up evil Superman and there's a lot of major differences. So let's build somebody that's truly a part of truth and justice and build Kal-El, aka Superman. And I want to do something a little different with this one, because there's a lot of versions of Superman out there. With the most recent movie, the Smallville show, and every other movie and show that's ever come out. So I want to build Superman in the order that he receives his powers. And since I've seen the entire Smallville show multiple times at this point, despite it being pretty darn long, it's just one of my comfort shows, we're going to use that as our source of truth for what order we need his abilities in. There's only going to be one thing that kind of breaks that, because there was a contract in the original Smallville show that he was not allowed to really fly outside of special circumstances. So that's the one thing we kind of just need to break, starting with the species, because we're gonna go with an Aasimar. Superman is from Krypton, and Aasimar kind of fits with that. I use it for a lot of my more alien-focused species. It gives you celestial resistance, giving you resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. It gives you dark vision. You also get healing hands, so as a magic action, you can touch a creature and roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus, regaining a number of hit points equal to the total. And remember, you can use this on yourself, and you also get celestial revelation. So as a bonus action, you can transform for a minute. And once on each of your turns, you deal extra damage when you deal damage with an attack or spell, and that damage is equal to your proficiency bonus and can be either necrotic or radiant damage. Additionally, when you transform, you get to choose a type of transformation, but we're going to be sticking with heavenly wings. That way you have a way to get a flying speed as soon as you hit level 3, and that flying speed is just equal to your general speed. So we have flying already. That's the one thing we don't have to worry about. Otherwise, we're gonna focus on the abilities in the order that they were received in Smallville. And speaking of Smallville, you grew up on a farm. We need a background, we're gonna go with farmer. This gives us skill proficiencies in animal handling and nature. Animal handling will help with your dog Crypto. It also gives us the tough feat, so we get an extra 2 hit points per level of this overall build. Then, jumping into the starting class, we need to focus on the first abilities, because starting the series, he gets enhanced strength, speed, and invulnerability. And considering the whole vibe of Clark Kent, aka Superman, we're gonna go with a Paladin. Paladins kind of exemplify the whole truth and justice thing. We get 2 skill proficiencies when we become a Paladin, so we're gonna go with Insight and Athletics. To boost up our survivability, aka the invulnerability part of this, you get Lay on Hands at first level of Paladin, so you get a pool of healing, and as a bonus action, you can touch any creature and heal as much of your pool of healing as you want. That pool of healing is equal to 5 times your Paladin level. And if you spend at least 5 of those hit points, you can ignore the healing part and cure the poisoned condition. Additionally, at first level of Paladin, you get some spell casting thanks to the upgrades in 2024. So I'm just going to run through every first level spell I would grab from the Paladin spell list. We'll grab Cure Wounds for some self-healing to improve your survivability even more, make you a bit more of a Man of Steel with Shield of Faith, and I should also mention your armor class is going to actually use real armor instead of using your skin like we might focus on with other versions of this build, just because I don't want to try and throw in unarmored defense on top of everything else. But on top of having the heaviest armor you can, Shield of Faith will boost up your armor class by 2 points. You can have protection from good and evil to make it so any aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, or undead all have disadvantage when attacking you. And those creatures can't put you under the charmed or frightened conditions. And that can be especially helpful because the charmed condition is a bit of an issue when it comes to Superman at times. Adding to some survivability, we'll also grab Heroism for some constantly regenerating temp HP, and then to make sure we hit pretty darn hard, we're gonna grab Thunderous Smite to hit with a loud boom, and Divine Smite to just hit as hard as possible. Divine Smite will add an extra 2d8 radiant damage when you hit a creature with an attack. But if you're hitting a fiend or undead, that gets boosted by an extra 1d8. And you can upcast this, increasing by an extra 1d8 per level of the spell slot used. The last thing you get from Paladin at first level is a weapon mastery, but you're mostly punching, so we don't have to worry about that. Speaking of punching, at second level of Paladin, you get to choose a fighting style. So we're going to grab Unarmed Fighting. So now you deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier instead of normal damage for an unarmed strike. And if you don't have any weapons or a shield, that D6 becomes a D8. On top of that, if you're grappling a creature, you automatically deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage to that creature at the start of each of your turns. Also at second level, you get Paladin Smite. So you always have that Divine Smite spell prepared anyways, and you can cast it without expending a spell slot. But you only get that one free casting of it once per long rest. At third level of Paladin, you get Channel Divinity, giving yourself a Divine Sense. And this is allowing us to kind of move past the first abilities a little bit, because the first abilities are Super Strength, Speed, and Invulnerability. Divine Sense is starting to kind of touch on that X-ray vision. It's just another way to enhance our senses, so I'm gonna lean into it a little bit, but not fully yet. It's just kind of hinting that that power is coming. Also at third level of Paladin, you get to choose a Paladin subclass. We're going to go with Oath of Glory. This has multiple ways to tie into Superman, because we get Inspiring Smite. So immediately after you cast Divine Smite, you can expend one of your Channel Divinities to give out a bunch of temporary hit points equal to 2d8 plus your Paladin level, divided amongst any amount of creatures you can see within 30 feet of you. Also, thanks to being an Oath of Glory Paladin, you get some spells added to your spell list automatically, like Guiding Bolt and Heroism. And Heroism we were already going to add to our spell list anyways, but also thanks to taking this subclass, you get Peerless Athlete, giving you an additional way to spend your Channel Divinity, because as a bonus action, you can boost up your athleticism, giving you advantage on strength athletic checks and dexterity acrobatics checks, and your long and high jumps are increased by 10 feet. It's not exactly leaping tall buildings in a single bound, but it at least gets you part of the way there. Then we'd still need to boost up our speed a bit more. We can hit hard, which is our enhanced strength, with our Divine Smite ability. We have a bit of invulnerability with all the self-healing and the enhanced armor class, but we need to focus a bit more on the speed. So at fourth level of Paladin, we get an ability score improvement, but we're going to grab a feat. And we're going to grab Speedy. This allows us to boost up our Constitution modifier by 1 point. So here's our starting ability scores, and we're going to boost up that Constitution modifier by 1. Then this feat boosts our speed by 10 feet. And on top of that, whenever you take the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't cost you any extra movement. And any opportunity attacks are always going to have disadvantage against you, even if you're not dashing. Then at 5th level Paladin, you get extra attacks, so now you can punch twice instead of just once, and you get Faithful Steed. So you can call forth the aid of an otherworldly steed, and you always have the Find Steed spell prepared. And you can cast it once without expending a spell slot. And this is another way to enhance our speed, because Find Steed has a way faster movement speed than we have. But if you want a reason to have an actual steed instead of just playing this up as your super speed, you can pretend it's Crypto, because your dog Crypto, while he's not a mountable steed, he is strong enough to carry you anyways, so I think it can still work. Then going on to 6th level of Paladin, you want to make sure you can protect your allies a bit. 6th level of Paladin gives us Aura of Protection. So anybody within 10 feet of you gets to add your Charisma modifier to any of their saving throws. And this is just one way for you to help protect everyone around you. 7th level of Paladin gives us Aura of Alacrity. So your speed is increased by another 10 feet. And whenever an ally enters your Aura of Protection for the first time on their turn or starts their turn there, their speed is increased by 10 feet as well. And since we've already hammered out most of the strength, speed, and invulnerability, we need to do a multi-class to start getting some of the other powers. But before we do that, we're so close to an ability score improvement, I just want to grab it while we're here. So at 8th level of Paladin, you get an ability score improvement, and let's go ahead and round out our strength and constitution modifiers. Then the next ability that Clark gets is X-Ray Vision, because it pops up in the 4th episode of Smallville. So to give us this beyond the Divine Sense ability, we're going to multi-class into Bard. This is fitting for a number of reasons, because Superman does inspire a lot of people around him, but it also gives us another skill proficiency. So we're going to grab Perception, enhancing our ability to see things around us, and this would also tie into our Super Hearing, but technically that didn't come in until after another power, but it's kind of hard to avoid those two things being paired together. Also at first level of Bard, you get Bardic Inspiration, so you can inspire those around you, just like Superman does. So you get a pool of D6s equal to your Charisma modifier, and you can use a bonus action to inspire somebody around you. You also get some spell casting from becoming a Bard, but really quickly, before anything else, I want to make sure I cover the second level features of being a Bard, because we get Expertise. And to amp up our semi-X-ray vision, because I've built Superman before, the only way to get X-ray vision was diving into Warlock, and that invocation isn't around anymore in 2024 unless I did older versions of Warlock, so I don't want to go that route, and it was hard to justify Superman being any levels of Warlock in the first place. So instead, we'll just grab Expertise, allowing us to double our proficiency bonus with Perception, so we are especially good at seeing stuff, and this will amp up our super hearing as well. But we get Expertise in one other skill, so we'll just boost up our athletics. Also, thanks to being a Bard, at second level we get Jack of all trades, so any skills you're not proficient in, you get to add half your skill proficiency to them. But when it comes to the spells, diving through any cantrip I would go with Thunderclap to have a big boom punching the ground around you, Friends to have some super friends, Blade Ward for a bit more defense for the invulnerability stuff, and then getting into first level spells, we're going to grab Disguise Self to throw on your glasses, Long Strider to boost up your super speed even more, Silvery Barbs just for a quick backup plan, and Healing Word for a bonus action self-heal. Then we're just going to quickly grab one more level in Bard, mostly because I want to hammer home this X-ray vision as much as possible, because that'll give us access to second level spells, but becoming third level in Bard does give us a Bard subclass, and there's not much that I feel like would really fit, but I have to go with what I've been using by default for a few different builds now, and go with the College of Dance. Mostly just because it'll give us one more way to punch somebody, because it gives us the feature Dazzling Footwork, which would give us unarmored defense, but in order to actually use strength, we don't really want to use this. We're going to use actual armor, and it would give us bardic damage, so our unarmed strikes would deal the same damage as our bardic die. But since we already have unarmed fighting, we don't need to worry about that either. The only reason we still want to grab it is because of agile strikes. So anytime you expend a bardic inspiration as a bonus action or a reaction, you can make one unarmed strike as part of that same action, bonus action, or reaction. Basically, you now have 2 attacks as your action and 1 attack as your bonus action if you want to. But third level of Bard also gives us access to second level Bard spells. In this Smallville show, his X-ray vision really comes into play when he has to go up against a person that can turn invisible, because using his X-ray vision allows him to see the skeleton of the person that is invisible. So we're going to grab the spell, See Invisibility. But the next ability he gets is in Season 2 of Smallville. Trying to use that as much as possible to guide the order of this build, even though we want to be able to use any version of Superman. So to amp up the idea of heat vision, we'll grab Heat Metal, allowing you to heat up any metal that's in contact with one of your enemies. This is especially powerful because if they're stuck being in contact with it, they can't avoid the damage, and it forces disadvantage if they're still holding on to it or in contact with that super hot object. Now we need to hammer in that heat vision a little more by diving into another multiclass and going into Sorcerer. Becoming a Sorcerer gives us innate sorcery, so you can activate innate sorcery for a minute, boosting up the difficulty of your spell saves by 1, or giving you advantage on attack rolls for Sorcerer spells, and you get to dive into some Sorcerer spells. We'll grab Firebolt and Sorcerer's Burst for other ways to pump out heat vision. As far as first level stuff, we'll grab Expeditious Retreat, and then we'll also grab Jump. We already have one way to boost up our jump distance, so this allows us to boost it again. So once on each of your turns, a creature can jump up to 30 feet by spending just 10 feet of movement, and to boost up that invulnerability a bit more, we'll also grab Shield, boosting up our armor class by +5 as a reaction. Then at second level of Sorcerer, we get Font of Magic, so you get a number of sorcery points equal to your level in Sorcerer, and you can trade them for more spell slots, or trade spell slots for more sorcery points, which you can also spend on meta magic. You get 2 meta magic options at this level, so we're going to grab Quicken Spells, so you can cast a spell that would usually require an action, and cast it as a bonus action. And then we'll also grab Extended Spell, so any spell that has a length of time, you can actually double it. Then at third level of Sorcerer, you get access to second level spells, so to focus more on the heat vision, we'll grab Agonizer, Scorcher, and Scorching Ray. Then It's very worth noting that the next ability after Super Hearing, because that popped up in Season 3 of Smallville, but we already kind of covered that with our Enhanced Perception, is his Super Breath / Arctic Breath, which popped up around Season 6 of the show. There's a lot of seasons of Smallville, and the best way for us to grab that is with Rhyme's Binding Ice. This allows you to let forth a burst of cold energy in a 30-foot cone, dealing 3d8 cold damage and reducing the speed of people hit by it to 0. And you can upcast this, increasing it by another d8 for every level of upcast. Then there's one last spell I want to grab from the second level spells, and that's because before he's officially dubbed Superman, he is known as the Blur or the Red-Blue Blur, so we'll grab the spell Blur. It makes it so your body becomes blurred, and creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. Also at 3rd level of Sorcerer, you get access to a Sorcerer subclass. And the only one that's going to help us at all is the Draconic Sorcerer, so that's what we're going to go with. This gives you Draconic Resilience, so you get an extra 3 hit points just by hitting this subclass, and you get another +1 HP every time you gain another level in Sorcerer, giving you another way to enhance your invulnerability. There's also some Draconic spells that get added to your spell list and are always prepared, and another one of them is going to give you another way to use your Super Breath / Arctic Breath with the spell Dragon's Breath. Then at 4th level of Sorcerer, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to boost up our strength by 2 more points. And then at 5th level of Sorcerer, you get Sorceress Restoration. So on a short rest, you can regain a number of sorcery points equal to half of your Sorcerer level rounded down. Also at 5th level, you get access to 3rd level spells. And to boost up the super speed a bit extra, we'll grab Haste, and then we've already covered pretty much every one of his core abilities. So might as well have a backup way to fly with the spell Fly, which we've always seen him able to fly, but in the Smallville show, it doesn't happen until the entire series finale at the end of Season 10. Then at 6th level of being a Draconic Sorcerer, you get Elemental Affinity, so you have resistance to one particular damage type of either Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Poison, and when you deal damage of that type, you can add your Charisma modifier to the damage. Considering your Heat Vision is used far more often than your Cold Breath, we'll just go ahead and go with fire damage. 7th level of Sorcerer gives us Sorcery Incarnate, so when your innate sorcery is active, you can actually use 2 meta magic options at the same time. And then at 8th level of Sorcerer, you get another ability score improvement. But we're going to take another feat and go with Inspiring Leader. I really want to focus on the idea that Superman is really an inspiration more than anything. This allows us to boost our Charisma modifier by +1, and it gives us the feature Bolstering Performance. So when you finish a short or long rest, you can give an inspiring speech, song, or dance, or any sort of performance. And when you do so, up to 6 allies, including yourself, get a number of temporary hit points equal to your character level, plus the modifier that you increased with this feat. And I should note that technically we were 19th level there, so we could have gone with an epic boon. But Superman's already overpowered enough most of the time, and the latest James Gunn Superman movie makes him a little more vulnerable, so I want to kind of lean into that a bit and not give him multiple epic boons, because that would be one epic boon, but we also get to jump back over to Bard for one more ability score improvement, which would technically give us another epic boon. But we're just going to go with one for now, and go with the Boon of Fortitude. This will give us Fortified Health, so we get an extra 40 hit points. And when you regain any amount of hit points, you get to add your Constitution modifier to whatever you gain. You can only do that part once per turn, but that's still insanely powerful, especially since we have some levels in Paladin, because that means with your Lay on Hands having a pool of healing equal to 5 times your Paladin level, you can heal yourself for just 1 point every single turn if you want to, but you get to add your Constitution modifier to every time you get healed. So that can really stack up to an insane degree. But that's how I build Superman as a playable character in D&D all the way through 20 levels. If there's anything you do differently, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to play as Clark Kent, Kal-El, the Man of Steel, Superman in Dungeons & Dragons.